Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. So with the recent release of the Doctor Who Christmas special The Church on Ruby Road, we've properly entered into the 15th Doctor's era. This era already promises a lot, but it's also the beginning of the third version of Doctor Who on TV, essentially a soft reboot taking the show back to basics and treating it much like it was all the way back in 2005. But why is this happening? And does Doctor Who even need a soft reboot like this to begin with? Well, since it's very relevant right now and this is my first video of 2024, I thought it would be fitting to dive into the reasons for Doctor Who's original decline, how it managed to succeed in the modern era, and hopefully answer the question of whether the show needs another new fresh start. Of course, expect spoilers for all Doctor Who up to this point, and some officially released information about Series 14, so consider this your warning, and without further ado, let's get on with it. So when you look on BBC iPlayer's Doctor Who section, you'll come across three main sections: Doctor Who 1963 to 1996, Doctor Who 2005 to 2022, and lastly Doctor Who 2023 onwards. Let's call these Classic Who, New Who and Neo Who respectively for the sake of convenience. Separating Neo Who into its very own section is an immediate statement of intent by current Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies and the BBC as a whole, specifically placing it within its very own era. But we'll get to all that a little bit later on. First of all, let's quickly recap Classic Who, which ran for 26 seasons, featured Seven and another Doctor, and introduced all sorts of major aliens and villains like the Daleks, the Cybermen and the Master, along with many others. This was the original run of the show, basically creating the foundation for everything we see today, so it's a massively important period for not only Doctor Who, but also for the British media landscape as a whole, with a significant cultural footprint. However, after the popularity of Doctor Who peaked with Tom Baker's fourth Doctor, the reputation of the show began to tank as it found itself underfunded and underperforming. Despite a lot of ambition from the production team and some phenomenal stories, the show was quietly axed in 1989, with only a failed TV movie in 1996 keeping the show alive on screen. 26 years is a good run though, that's longer than most shows could ever even dream of, so that cultural footprint was big. No, it was bigger than that. It was large. So despite the show itself being cancelled, the fan base never really died out. It's August 2003. The BBC has finally managed to sort out the mess of production rights courtesy of the TV movie 7 years earlier. Wanting to bring Doctor Who back to its primetime Saturday evening slot, Lorraine Heggessey and Jane Tranter approached head of drama Julie Gardner and the successful writer and lifelong Doctor Who fan Russell T Davies. What followed was the beloved Series 1 introducing the 9th Doctor and Rose Tyler, a grounded, winning combination that would bring Doctor Who out of the darkness and turn Saturday night TV on its head. Despite Doctor Who's abysmal reputation heading into the millennium, Series 1 was an undisputed success both critically and financially, even if the production was amateur, disastrous, and more toxic than a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle backstory. One of the main reasons the 2005 relaunch worked so well was because it completely eschewed the baggage of Classic Who. It essentially acted as an entirely different show, never outright undoing what Classic Who had done, but starting from fresh and slowly building things back up for new audiences. The Daleks, the Cybermen, and even the Master would gradually be eased back into the show, along with the former companion Sarah Jane Smith, but it was always done under the assumption that the audience had no idea who any of them were. Companions like Rose Tyler and Martha Jones reflected this unfamiliarity, so it was able to successfully build things back up and more confidently acknowledge the past now that it had success and a large fanbase eager to explore more of the Doctor Who universe. The first Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who was an incredible achievement, navigating so many potential issues and completely reinventing the show for a modern audience, emphasising the drama and action. However, Davies also implemented a strong sense of world building, with recurring characters, organisations, and a backdrop of continuity back on Earth as a setting. This made Series 4 a lot more impenetrable than Series 1, since there was already a lot more baggage and backstory to keep up with, especially in a world without modern streaming or on-demand TV, but the show continued to grow and grow, creating a newer cultural footprint as it became equally, if not more successful and popular than Classic Who ever was. After 5 years in charge, Davis handed control over to acclaimed writer Stephen Moffat, who tried to somewhat start afresh with Series 5, introducing a new Doctor, companion, and trying not to use too many elements of the previous era as to not alienate any new fans coming in. Of course, as his era went on, the strain did begin to show, with more ambitious, head-scratching story arcs relying on a lot of continuity and the baggage of characters like River Song. But the 11th Doctor era by and large continued the upwards growth into 2013, the show's 50th anniversary. However, from here, things began to go downhill a little. Day of the Doctor was a hugely successful cinematic event, but it was also one of the most continuity-heavy stories in the show's entire history. With a lot going on and a lot of returning faces you kind of had to already be familiar with, by the time the 12th Doctor showed up, there was no way Series 8 could be a jumping on point like Series 5 was. To know who Clara was, you had to watch Series 7B. To understand the Impossible Girl arc, you had to start with Series 7A. To understand the dynamics of the Doctor and the Ponds, you had to go all the way back to Series 5, and you get the gist. Most fans decided it was time to head out, especially because their pretty little 11th Doctor had become, shock and horror, an old man, which is so uncharacteristic. Just ignore all these previous Doctors. The 12th Doctor era is my favourite of Doctor Who's long history, but it does not work as a jumping on point. Even when Moffat tried to make Series 10 a fresh start, only to then have two versions of the Master, Ice Warriors, Mondasian Cybermen, and the first Doctor all show up. So within 10 series of Doctor Who, we only found ourselves with two real starting points for newcomers, Rose and the 11th Hour. Everything else could still get people into the show, but not as cleanly as those two episodes. However, this is where the Doctor Who fanbase's arch nemesis Chris Chibnall comes in and actually did something good. He took over from Moffat and tried his own fresh start with Series 11. And yeah, regardless of the very inconsistent narrative and acting quality of this series and the others following it, it very much functions as a clean slate. There's a brand new Doctor, new companions, no returning enemies during the actual series, and it all very much treats itself as a brand new jumping on opportunity, a full-on regeneration from top to bottom. It's just a shame that Series 12 and 13 then became the absolute most impenetrable series Doctor Who has ever offered newcomers. Like seriously, I can't imagine how lost new fans would have been during those story arcs. Like, you're throwing stuff like Captain Jack at them, and then Timeless Child, and Cybermasters, and Gallifrey, and it's so much all at once, and then the Flux. It must have been an absolute nightmare. Towards the end of Series 13, Doctor Who's reputation had tanked pretty heavily, creating a situation eerily similar to the end of Classic Who. When Chibnall wrote the 13th Doctor's final, very fanwank heavy episode and prepared to leave himself, there wasn't any succession plan. He didn't even know if the show would continue afterwards. Ratings had rapidly dwindled, marketing was non-existent, and if you asked anyone in the streets what they thought of Doctor Who, they'd probably say something along the lines of, "Oh, I used to watch that when it had David Tennant in it. So what could possibly be done to save Doctor Who?" They brought David Tennant back. Yeah, I had literally even joked about that exact outcome when Russell T Davies was announced as Chibnall's successor. Doctor Who had been heading towards certain doom, so Davies stepped in to take over once more because he did genuinely want to come back. He had a proven track record for the show, and his post-Doctor Who shows had all been hugely successful, so it was seen as a very positive appointment and fans were very excited. It would bring all those casual lapsed fans back and create a buzz around the show once again during its 60th anniversary year, with 3 ambitious specials featuring David Tennant as a new incarnation of the Doctor, and yeah, it definitely did work. The ratings rose, the marketing went into overdrive, a bunch of lapsed fans did indeed come back to see their favourite Doctor again. It was, by and large, a big success. But it was also the end of an 18-year journey. A big criticism of these 14th Doctor specials are how much they feel like a Series 4 victory lap, with David Tennant and Catherine Tate back again, and not much from all the other 60 years of Doctor Who. And that is definitely a big downside of it, but it was clearly intentional by Russell T Davies. The running theme of these 3 specials, for better or for worse, is how the Doctor needs to slow down and process his trauma after all the baggage of both Classic Who and New Who. The Flux and the Timeless Child story arcs are addressed as major grief for the character, and the trilogy culminates in the 14th and 15th Doctors quite literally splitting apart, with the former retiring to be with the noble family. This is very much the end of New Who as a whole. Even if the 14th Doctor eventually properly becomes the 15th, the optics of this ending are that the original Doctor is retiring with his original TARDIS, and it's the ending of the character's journey since Series 1, where he burst onto our screens as a tragic hero without a home or a family. Davis obviously wanted to create a definitive ending for New Who, and this is the closest he could get to that without the show ending outright. So the 14th Doctor retiring gives his successor a complete clean slate. Hell, even the concept of bi-generation does that too, because it achieves a similar effect of never seeing the 8th Doctor regenerating into the 9th all the way back in 2005. We met the 9th Doctor after he had some life experience, so there was no need to see him picking his wardrobe or going through any kind of post-regeneration madness that might alienate the new audience. When we see the 15th Doctor in Church on Ruby Road, he's already a fully formed character with no quote-unquote homework required. You don't actively need to go watch The Giggle and everything before to understand who this Doctor is. He has everything already sorted for him, and it's the same kind of clean break Rose was back in 2005. My good friend Joe Brennan made a video a while back about why we need another completely fresh start like that episode, and that's exactly what we're getting with the 15th Doctor and Ruby Sunday. But there are a few big issues with this attempt at the hardest reset of the show in 18 years. The biggest being that the Church on Ruby Road is being internationally advertised as Special 4. Implying you have to watch the 14th Doctor era and then you have all sorts of baggage to deal with. Essentially it would be like starting the 13th Doctor's era with Twice Upon a Time. You know, there's too much going on to just explain away as just random backstory. Even iPlayer includes the 60th specials as part of Neo Who, despite them being an epilogue to New Who. So it's all just very, very messy and not exactly consumer friendly. It just muddles things way too much. And then when you throw in all of this Whoniverse and spin-off stuff, it gets even more alienating for new viewers. One of the biggest indications of Neo Who being a complete break from the past is Series 14 officially being branded as Season 1, a move which Disney may or may not have been involved in depending on who you ask. But because of the baggage of the 2023 specials, it doesn't really solve the problem of needing to reset the show. And on top of that, there's also the slight difference of the 26-year gap between Classic Who and New Who, and the 15 days between New Who and Neo Who. That's nowhere near enough to properly wipe the slate clean and start truly fresh like Davis seems to want to do. He's making sweeping changes like the new sonic screwdriver, the intelligent gloves, and the move towards more fantasy-based storytelling. But Series 14 is also having Unit and Mel come back, so it doesn't come across as different enough to warrant such a branding overhaul. Like I said, it's just so messy and unnecessary. Now, there's no denying New Who has an insane amount of baggage and continuity to keep track of, but like I implied earlier, The Woman Who Fell to Earth proved that you don't have to completely break from the past and rebrand everything just to attract viewers. It was still branded as Series 11. The 13th Doctor was a direct continuation of the 12th Doctor, with that regeneration in Twice Upon a Time, but The Woman Who Fell to Earth still managed to pull in almost 11 million viewers for a premiere of the 11th series, the most of any regular episode in the modern show's entire history. The Chibnall era didn't keep those viewers because of a lack of quality, but it's very recent proof that a full overhaul akin to the 15th Doctor era is actually quite unnecessary. There's a wider cultural trend going on at the moment of companies kind of being scared of numbers. For example, WrestleMania went from WrestleMania 30 to WrestleMania play button, and also movies use titled entries now rather than having a number there, and it's a trend that Doctor Who is clearly trying to follow a little bit. I think Flux was a good way of tackling this perceived number phobia audiences apparently have, but calling Series 14 Season 1 just creates a lot of confusion because there's two other series that can easily be confused with. Also, unlike 2005, it's a lot easier for audiences to just Google where they can start watching Doctor Who. But hey, I guess the mouse wants the entire show to rebrand itself just because they don't have the rights to earlier series. When a show is 60 years old, there will always be a lot of problems with attracting new audiences without them being scared by that history. But Doctor Who is a constantly evolving and changing show. You don't avoid watching, I don't know, like say EastEnders because it's been going on for decades. You just hop in wherever and you'll be fine. In fact, Doctor Who is even more accessible than most shows because of all these soft reboots and onboarding points I've mentioned. I know that it's all just marketing at the end of the day and that it doesn't really matter all that much, but it just annoys me that New Who was ended only for a slightly different new era to be introduced just 2 weeks later. It really does just seem like something Disney has softly imposed upon the production team because it makes it easier to brand and market on their platform since they don't have those previous 13 series. The whole thing is just so weird to me. I know I'm biased being a child of New Who and I'm full of nostalgia for it, so I'm absolutely not suggesting Doctor Who is dying or dead because of Neo Who. It just seems like an unnecessary branding change. But regardless, I'll still be watching. I'll just refer to it as Series 14 rather than Season 1 and go about my life as normal. Hopefully the relaunch gamble does pay off and gets more people to watch this beautiful, fun show. That's what's most important at the end of the day. I know this video has been a bit ranty and less structured than usual. It's just kind of like a stream of consciousness because I haven't slept in like 24 hours, but I just had a lot on my mind and needed to get it out on time, so I hope it all made sense and that you enjoyed it. Reboot or not, I'm definitely excited for Series 14 and I'll absolutely be reviewing it as normal. So yeah, I don't want it to seem like I'm having some man-child tantrum or pedantic rant, it's just me questioning the decision because I really don't think Doctor Who does need a soft reboot like this. Every new Doctor has served as a jumping on point if you just do it right and follow through on that momentum like we've seen time and time again. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye bye. And I'd just like to give an extra special thank you to my Asbantium level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patron, Glenna Clark, my Platinum level patrons, Matthew Burns and Maximilian Foreman, and all my Gold level patrons, Boots, Daniel Shillito, Franz on AK Line Vortex, Robert Hock, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.